meeting to order at this time, 6 p.m. Roll call.
John Myers.
Here.
Josh Turner.
Here.
Pete Ketchum.
Here.
Jim Ison.
Here.
Josh McCarty.
Here.
Rob Henderson.
Here.
Jonathan Myers.
Here. Pete, could you do the application, please?
You bet. Dear God, our Heavenly Father, bless all of our endeavors, especially at tonight's meeting. Guide our discussions. Please give us the wisdom in every decision that we can make. Give us your grace that we may effectively do our parts as public servants. Bless our programs and projects so that we may achieve our objectives. We pray for these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of tonight's agenda. One addition, number 83, will be community development. Anything else after that?
Motion to approve the agenda with those changes.
Motion by Mr. McCarty. Second. Second by Mr. Henderson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public comments. Hearing none, we'll move on. Next is the approval of ordinance. Ordinance 2020-03, first reading, authorizing general obligation bond for the purpose of providing funds to acquire vehicles, acquire and install certain equipment, complete certain projects, and make certain improvements and renovation, and to pay the cost of the issuance of the bond.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Bond is for $2,510,000. We do this every couple of years. Commissioner, like to add to this? Or?
If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those questions for you, sir.
I'd like to ask Brian. Well, Brian, you and I had a talk a couple months ago with regards to the pandemic and what was laying ahead. We talked about where possible you would consider or you would delay projects that were less urgent. Is that the case here? With some of these, for example, maybe the fairgrounds, Johnson County Park?
Yes, you know, the Johnson County Fairgrounds, the park, most of that is basically stuff that we can kind of put on the back burner for now. Just to let you know, the park, probably that money with some other funds that we have from a previous bond would be used for doing some pavement out there, which we think is really, really necessary out there. The fairgrounds, we're still doing a lot of stuff out there. We're redoing roofs right now. There are 4 more roofs that really need to be replaced that if we continue to let them go, we'll probably start seeing damage. The storage tank is over at the juvenile center. That needs to be removed and then add an above ground. So a lot of this stuff is really stuff that we're going to have to do. And we really looked at this closely to make sure that we weren't going to do some things that we didn't really need to do. Dickinson Juvenile Justice Center, these are all major flaws in that building. The boilers need to be replaced. The roof is shot. We have a south wall on the inside of the rec area that's coming down. And we've got some brick issues and facade issues on the outside of the west side of that center that are just starting to, we're going to start seeing some things come off that building if we don't do something about that very shortly. So really most of this stuff with your vehicles and all that, this stuff really here, most of this is going to be really kind of crucial to continue on with. There's some other things in previous bonds we can delay, which we have at this point, but I would think going forward, these would be things that we need to really do.
Thanks. If I could ask one other question, what happens to the issued bond funds if they don't get used by the end of the designated period?
Really, we keep them used as much as we can, but when we start getting into where we're 2 years out on a bond, we really need to be using those bond funds up just because we need to, number one, and the stuff we have on there really needs to be done within that period of time. But I don't know, and we've talked about this before, I don't think there's, we would lose bonds over it, but we try to at least to cancel those out every 2 years. We've got a 2018 general obligation bond that we put some things on hold. That's something we've got to start looking at real seriously as we get toward the end of this year, using those funds and move them on. And again, remember when we do these bonds, we're allowed to move this money around as long as we move it to something else that's on that current bond list. So we don't necessarily need to use certain funds a certain way. We can use them anywhere and rotate them on the list. And that's what we'll probably look at in 2018 to make sure that we don't spend any unnecessary funds. Just to maybe look at some line items there we can move things into.
Commissioners, Rob Henderson, question on maybe an expansion of the Dickinson Juvenile Justice Center. Noted as repairs, and that's all fine. You explained some of that, but with prior conversations in public and elsewhere about possible relocation of community corrections to that facility, would you anticipate, and that is big picture thinking, people, don't run out of here thinking it's going to happen tomorrow, please. But would any of the proposed repairs that you're looking at today not be of value if that relocation were to occur, or are these of value to the building that would not limit the repurpose of that building?
The use of this building, I mean, when you look at the boilers in the building, that wouldn't affect any future use of it. Neither would the roof, of course, on that. Probably any kind of interior redesign that would be done would not affect the exterior of the building at this point in time. And yes, you're right. There's always been talk of maybe utilizing that building in another way and doing something else. And those are still things in future plans as far as I'm concerned, as long as we have the funds available to do that down the road. And again, with everything that's going on, we can't really answer that question. I don't think any of us can on what the outcome is going to be and what the results of what we've done is going to be here in a year and a half. The only thing that might not be something unless, and I'd have to get with Dan Cartwright on that, unless that's something that wouldn't be of danger to anyone, would be the inside of the recreation area. That wall in there might be something that we could maybe not do at this point in time. The rest of it, the problem we're going to have is it's going to start collapsing possibly, and we don't want that to happen regardless. So those type things there, I think we need to continue to look forward to doing.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
So, Mr. President, this is the first reading of this ordinance, correct? Is this also a public hearing? No, okay, great. Well, I would motion to approve tonight's first reading of ordinance 2020-03 that's presented.
Second. I have a motion by Mr. Henderson, a second by Mr. McCarty. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Routine matters consent agenda. Not a lot in there. Anybody see anything that you'd like to pull out? So it's like transfers.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Have a motion by Mr. Curry, second by Jonathan T. Myers. All in favor? All opposed? Passes. Up next, Health Department.
Betsy Swearingen, Director, Johnson County Health Department. I apologize for taking up half your agenda this evening. Well, we have a few things to discuss, so.
First one on the list is the SARS-CoV-2 testing.
Right, that is a new grant that is being offered by the State Department of Health for us to open a COVID testing site within Johnson County. We're receiving, actually, this is $100,000. We have been told that we may be receiving an additional $100,000 for this testing site. So this is the budget to begin the site testing on September 1st. It will run September 1st through June 30th of next year. It has to be run 35 hours a week, has to have after hours and Saturday components. So the site will run Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday, all starting at 9, Monday and Wednesday, 9 to 6, Tuesday and Thursday, 9 to 3, with Friday as an off day for ours. For my staff to do their regular job.
Where will that take place at?
It will be in between Herring Hall and Scott Hall. We will be putting up our mobile tent, and it will be a drive-through.
So is this gonna be the full-time employees or part-time?
The part-time line item, what we're hoping to do is hire off-duty paramedics and EMTs to do the swabbing, so that alleviates that job responsibility from my staff. And then it'll also be staffed partly during regular hours by my staff for administration and security. And then on Saturdays, we will have at least one Johnson County Health Department employee there to oversee the clinic. So the part-time line item is for the paramedics and the EMTs. And then possibly on Saturday, if we bring in kind of our thoughts are maybe some college kids or some, people who would like a part-time job on the side to do the admin and the security portion of the testing site.
Betsy, do you know how the swabs or the test will be administered, where the results, where the samplings go for testing and confirmation, and how people get the results back?
Sure. The greatest thing about this grant is there's equipment built into the grant by the state. The state will provide all the swabs and the testing kits. They will provide a courier for those swabs to be taken to the State Department of Health's lab for analysis. We're hoping 48-hour turnaround time. We'll cross our fingers. That's what they say now, but we'll see how busy we are. And they anticipate we will have enough supplies and enough kits for 100 tests a day. I don't know where we'll be on that. And then there will be a software a tracking system that the state will send to us as well, that we will track and hopefully pre-register people online, but we will not turn you away if you show up on site pre-registered.
Do you have to be a county resident?
No, that's part of the grant requirement.
Any cost at all to the person when they pull up? Is there?
Thoughts like, what do you mean?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's a fee.
Cost,
Is there
fee or expense?
Oh, that hasn't been
Okay.
That, it hasn't been spelled out. I also don't know when we're getting the testing kits. I don't know when we're getting the software. I know we're ready to go
Okay.
on our part, and we can be, I need about 48 hours, and we could be up and running if we get what we need from, or when we get what we need from the state.
Did you look at contracting the service out?
No, that's the issue, is it has to be run by the health department. That's part of the grant. We could have partnered with another agency, but we didn't have any takers.
Does it require a physician's referral?
No.
So it's just
No.
anybody that wants.
Anyone that wants a test. And we will strongly encourage, so we're receiving this $100,000. There's some talk that we were gonna receive another $100,000 for marketing of this clinic. However, that's been said that that 100,000 will be just dumped into this pot for however we would want to spend it. And we will use some of that on marketing with the clear message that when you come through our site to be tested, go home and don't do anything until you get your testing results, because that's what's biting us in the tail right now, is people are getting tested and then going on with their daily lives and then making people sick because they're sick when they get tested, but they go back to their regular job in life, waiting for that to come through.
Are you able to prioritize those that might be considered high risk or already at an elevated risk, even maybe pre-existing condition?
I don't know that we'll prioritize anybody. I apologize for that. That's my phone. We'll take you. You'll register. You'll set an appointment. You'll come through the line, and like I said, we will take those that will drive up. They'll be handled in a different line, and because they'll have paperwork and everything that they need to complete.
Are you, sorry, any liability protection afforded to the county through this? If we were to mess up a test or somebody gets hurt while they're on our property taking the test or anything like that?
I believe that's under Good Samaritan. Am I correct? We'll have to look.
I need to look at your grant. Based on what?
Who decides where the site is going to be?
We need that decision with our, originally, we had hoped to have it in our parking lot, because it's immediately next to our building, and then we could still run back and forth and do both jobs at the same time. However, the parking lot where we are, the landlord only owns a certain amount of the spots, and the location that we wanted to put it, the bank owns that portion of the parking lot. So the commissioners offered us some space at the fairgrounds.
Is it possible that this site could move somewhere else?
That's the one thing that the State Department of Health is asking us. They want us to determine a site and leave it there. It's the continuity of operations. It's what the public become familiar with. When you're moving sites all the time, then they don't know what time it starts. They don't know where it is. They don't know if it's open. That's why we stayed with the starting time the same all through the week. So we're trying to be as consistent as possible.
I'm assuming these tests are going to be self-administered, correct?
No, they'll be administered by an EMT or a paramedic, and we prefer a paramedic, but we have a waiver from the state that says that an EMT may do it as well, may swab as well. So you do have to have a certain, and those people are protected insurance-wise. Those EMTs and paramedics carry their own insurance to cover them in the case of, God forbid, a bad swab. I don't know what else to call that.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of questions for 3 grants. Good stuff. I'm ready. All right, I'll motion to approve item D1, testing as discussed, presented and discussed.
Motion by Mr. Henderson, a second by Mr. Ison. Any other discussion? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes.
sorry about that. Turn this down, I'm not sure why we have so many people, I know why we have so many people. It's been a busy news day. Okay, I apologize for that.
CRI BB1 or I?
This is the CRI, it's our preparedness grant for 2020 through 2021, July 1 through June 30th of next year. It's that we receive this grant every year for preparedness. So this is the CRI, oh my God, I'm sorry. This is the CRI portion of the grant, it's the budget. And that was on the letter to you that was pending approval by the state, that was approved last week.
I motion to approve item D2, the appropriation of grant funds as presented.
A motion by Mr. Henderson, a second by Jonathan T. Myers. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Your base,
And then, yeah, the next one is the base portion of that preparedness grant. This is the budget for it, and it was pending approval, and it was approved as well.
Motion to approve item D3 as presented.
motion by Mr. Henderson, a second by Mr. McCarty. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Local health maintenance.
This one is still pending approval from the state. It is a budget revision. We have to, anytime we want to move money within this fund or add additional, we have to, from our carryover, our rollover that we have in this grant, we have to ask the state to do a budget revision. So that revision is at the state. It does sometimes take them a little bit of time, but we wanted to get on your agenda so that we could hopefully get it approved so that when the approval comes through, we can go ahead. It is for vehicle maintenance and supplies and vehicle repair and maintenance. Those are two new line items or two new line items that we want to fund to help provide support for our mobile command vehicle that we purchased with this grant. And then the part-time line item is we're starting a community or a Johnson County paramedicine program. And so that part-time line item will be used for paramedics to work in conjunction with our nursing division of the health department to offer paramedical services to the residents of Johnson County. And then lastly, that's FICA and Social Security on those part-time wages, and professional services, I believe, is with regard to that paramedicine program as well.
Amy, do you have any apprehension about us taking action on something that might happen or might not? I motion to approve item D4 over on tonight's agenda as presented and if approved by the other board. Thank you.
Wait on you.
Have a motion by Mr. Henderson, a second by Mr. Hudson. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes.
Thank you,
Thank you.
gentlemen, I appreciate it.
Sheriff.
I don't think the sheriff needs my purse.
You might want it.
I won't go through it.
Well, there's not much in there, so.
Health department's up here.
Yeah, so you don't wipe off your forehead because you're sweating.
Never.
Never.
All amongst friends. Dwayne Burgess, Sheriff of Johnson County. We discussed this last month when we were getting the officer for over here at the West Annex. This is for adult probation, which will be in that building. Same requirements to help relieve their officer so he can do his duties. They have many people that come visit there at the probation. Even the state parole department uses that facility to interview and talk to their people and check on them.
Motion by Mr. Ison, a second by Jonathan T. Myers. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes.
Item 6 for the 105, we received a donation from Ellen Meyer to our canine unit in memory of her dad, George Mulligan, of $3,000, and they're requesting that be put into our canine special teams unit.
Motion to approve item 6 as presented. Item E6.
Have a motion by Mr. Henderson, a second by Mr. McCarty. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes.
The Johnson County Sex Offender Fee Fund, 1192 for 105 A and B will be for office supplies, which will be thumb drives for evidence. We have 3 ailing cabinets that are also in there for Detective Talley's office that registers sex offenders and handles any of that. So we're looking, I don't know if we need to do these separately here, but the first one on A for 1192. 0.21500.000. 0.105 was for $500 for hard drives, or thumb drives, I'm sorry. Apologize.
Chairman, I make a motion to approve item 7A and B as requested.
Have a motion by Mr. McCarty, a second by Mr. Henderson. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Angela Morris, probation. I have 8 and 9. So on number 8, back in October, the budget was approved for a first-year probation officer. She quit on October 31st, was her last day. So we hired a veteran probation officer in November. So I'm here now to ask for the difference in the 2 salaries that were the one that was approved for the budget and then what we need to finish out the rest of the year.
And is this a position where the salary is set by the state?
Yes, yes, and he has his master's degree. He's CSAM certified and certified to teach MRT also.
In the letter it says this gentleman was rehired. Had been a prior employee.
Correct, yes. He's here, I think, 17 years, went to the private industry, tried to come back, went to Shelby County, and then we rehired him in November.
Left on good terms the first time?
Yes.
Motion to approve it as presented.
Have a motion by Mr. Ison, second by Mr. Jonathan T. Myers. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Passes.
Number 9, it's for the alcohol and drug. It's under the alcohol and drug fund, the 2502. It's a fee-based fund. I'm asking if the part-time position be able to go up to $50 an hour. Right now, I believe the cap is at 13.
You have a hard time filling positions, or you just kind of.
No, this particular instance, the girl that I'd like to raise to go to $15 an hour completed her bachelor's degree in May.
Do we just have the one part-time person when you spoke of, or just impacted hours right now?
It would just be this one.
Is there a retro date on this, or is it just that?
Oh, there is a retro date. What was 2 paychecks ago? Was that Thursday? first one in August.
July 29th or July 15th?
July 29th.
Pay dates would be July 15th workday.
Sorry.
It'd be July 15 workday or July 16 workday.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. July 16th.
Sorry. I didn't.
I motion to approve this increase for this individual retroactive to July 16th. July 16th, 2020.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Henderson, a second by Mr. Turner. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Johnson County Library.
That's us. Good evening, I'm Lisa Littner, the Johnson County Public Library Director, and with us is Kirk Bixler, our Board President. So we're here today. I sent you an email, but I'm here if you need an explanation of what this fiscal body report is. I'm happy to kind of give a brief overview of it unless you know what you're looking at today. Okay, certainly. So there was a Senate Enrolled Act 410 concerning public libraries, in which libraries have to both acknowledge a fiscal body if they meet certain circumstances with their budgets. Those circumstances are if at the end of a year, if they have more than 150% cash balance compared to their certified budget, they could be subject to binding review by their fiscal body. So today what we're here to do, Indiana State Library is requiring all library districts to acknowledge who their fiscal body is. And you are our fiscal body. So if we were ever in this situation where we had 150% of a cash reserve over our certified budget, you guys would be able to do a binding review of the Johnson County Public Library budget. So today it's just acknowledging that you are our fiscal body. We did that at a board meeting. Our board president signed it, and the report is basically we need the president to also acknowledge that you are, or you can, I guess, say you're not if you want to. And I think there is some way to say you're not, but you are. And that's all determined because we are across the county, and more than 50% of our folks in our district live outside a single city. So, like if we looked at Franklin, we have over 110,000 people in our library district. Franklin's 25,000. We have more than 50% of our residents in our district in the county.
Will this change to say Franklin would annex Whiteland, and Whiteland annex Bargersville? Would that change if the population was different?
It sounds like that would change a different aspect of it. As far as the non-binding versus binding, I think it only has to do with the budget and whether,
Right. But I don't know if this would have to change later. Yeah.
if they're no longer a county library, then you're right, they would have a different fiscal body to report to.
Or if Reed would annex all of Center Grove or White River Township area, then maybe more than 50% would be in Greenwood of our residents, but yeah. Maybe.
Any other questions? All right.
I motion we acknowledge this document.
Say,
Is that in the form of an approval, or does it have to be just flat acknowledgement?
Fine. Yeah, I think it's set up for John's signature, right? Yeah, so that's fine.
Motion second.
motion by Mr. Henderson, second by Mr. McCurry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner,
Good evening. Ron West, Johnson County Commissioner. I was waiting for the council review there on your property tax limits. Well, I'm here to talk a little bit about the Swallow Lakes East drainage project that I've personally been involved with for over 3 years now. And we've been 2 years since we got House Bill 1155 enacted, which allows the county to enter into an agreement with an HOA, and it allows the county to recover its funding through a property tax assessment on their spring property tax. So we're finally to that point after all of these years, and I can't tell you how much effort a lot of individuals have put into this. The project is, we approved it today. The commissioners approved the agreement between the county and the HOA with a couple of tentative arrangements there. We're still waiting for a letter of certification. And then we're also going to make an addendum to the agreement that some of the homeowners can pay up front, pay one lump sum up front, but that doesn't alter the overall mechanism of the process. And so we've approved both today. We approved a contractor. We have a contractor ready to go with $292,000. We approved the agreement at $322,000. And the extra money in there is to cover some of the costs we've already incurred for Dan Cartwright, his time, a few other minor things, but also anything that might come up in the process of executing this agreement and getting things started. There is a contingency in there of $32,000, not in this budget, but the Homeowners Association has those funds, and so they're going to cover the $32,000 in contingency fees. This is a pilot project, as you've heard me say so many times, and we're on the threshold of being a pioneer here in the state of Indiana, the first county to ever enter into such an agreement and perform those agreements or the conditions of those agreements. We're obligated per the statute to use general fund money. And because I didn't get it to Amy in time to get on your agenda for an additional appropriation for the funds, what I'm requesting this evening is for you to give us the go ahead on the funding. We'll operate in the negative. And Pam kind of briefed me on how we could do that. You can take that up with her. She's more knowledgeable in that area. But if we can get the approval tonight on the funding aspect of it, we'll go ahead and get the contractor started. We'll operate it in the red, and then your September 21st meeting, you will have proper public notice so you can go ahead and do an additional appropriation for the 322. One thing in this arrangement is that if there's funds available after the project is completed that we didn't expend, then we will give those monies back to the homeowners who paid up front. And then we'll just reduce the obligation of the other homeowners who will still be making their annual payments. The way it's structured right now, there's 164 households or homes in this subdivision. And they're going to be obligated to $185.35 per year on a 15-year amortization schedule, and that's at a 4.5% interest rate. So my plan is to try to borrow the money, and I love Gina, I wore her out and Sheena on this going back and forth on trying to borrow the money. And I'm still trying to pursue a mechanism or an avenue by which we can do it. My intention all along was, per the statute, to use general fund money to get the project started, and go to a lending institution, borrow the money back. And at that point, we're just a transfer or pass through of the funds to satisfy the debt at the bank. Pretty simple process. So I'm still pursuing that. There's still question marks there. But the worst case is the county would, over a period of this time, earn 4.5% on the funds that they expend for this project. So that's don't want to say a moneymaker, but it is, it recovers the use of the funds at a higher rate than what we would currently get if we just had them in a savings thing or a CD or something of that nature.
So Ron, are you saying it's not possible that, it's potentially not possible that we could borrow the money and then we just have to expend it out of general? And use the money out of general?
Right now, the way it is, we have to, the statute, when Legal Services wrote the statute, unbeknownst to me, they put that condition in there that we have to use general fund money. So we have to use general fund money to initiate the program. And then once we get that mechanism started, then I'll continue to pursue a mechanism by which we can borrow the money from a lending institution. If it proves that there's just absolutely no way, then I'm prepared to go to the General Assembly and our state legislators and ask someone to carry a bill that would allow us. And I've talked to Rob, I've talked to other bankers, and they've made loans to government units. So I'm a little bit lost here as to why the county can't do this at this time. And we're going to work on it. Rob's going to do some research and get back to me. But I think eventually we'll be able to get that done.
Yeah, but if you don't, the county could be out the 300 grand in 15 years.
Well, no, you won't be out that much. Yeah, you'll get it back incrementally over 15 years. You're going to get, I've kind of got a feeling that there's a number of homeowners. Let me give you the count. They had 96 yeses and 15 nos as of Friday to approve this project. So that's 111, and they still got some coming in, but they had the majority which they needed. I kind of got a feeling that an awful lot of them are going to just pay it up front. And if they do that, then that minimizes the amount of money that the county would have to utilize to get the project going.
What's the total per homeowner over a 15-year period?
If right now, the way I look at it, it would be $1,963.41 per homeowner to pay the money up front. With the condition, as I said earlier, if there's funds that we don't expend, then we'll prorate that. In other words, we'll take $20,000, we'll divide it by 164, and that's how much money they'll get back, which is not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. And I don't want to mislead you to make you think that everybody's going to pay up front. They're not. But I did have a lot of people at their homeowner association meeting indicate they would consider that or like the fact that they brought it up.
So they'd be billed on their property tax.
Yes, what we'll do is much like a legal drain or a ditch tax that goes on your spring property tax. And so we'll, starting next year in the spring, they'll have this assessment on their property tax. And this goes with the home or the parcel, not with the homeowner. So if they sell, the next person's obligated also. So it just continues on.
I heard you mention Dan Cartwright's name. Will he be administering the project? Will he be?
Dan will have he's going to be involved a little bit, but Crossroads Engineering is going to be the project manager, and they're also doing the staking, and the homeowner association's picking up that. They're paying.
And they're doing the design also.
They've already done all of that. There's been an awful lot of work on this project done today. Several $1,000s that the homeowners association's paid already to get it to this point.
I know you're probably ready for it to about be over with, right? Spent a lot of time on it.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many meetings I've had with individuals and the homeowners association, attending their annual meetings and other meetings. And here's the real important thing with this. This is a huge project, and I'm first to admit it. I even cautioned the president of the HOA and a couple other members in the beginning. I said, let's just try to do a portion here and keep the overall cost down a little bit. Just, we need to get a test program going here. And they said, well, if we're going to do it for these people over here, they really got a need also. I'm telling you, they've got a lot of drainage problems over there. And it was just their conclusion that they needed to affect and address drainage problems with as many households or homeowners as they could. And that's how the project grew to this magnitude. And we got another one we've been working on at Foxbury Trace. I've been working with, the HOA over there has a maintenance company. And I've been working with a lady who represents the maintenance company. And that's a much smaller project, probably gonna be somewhere in the $25,000 range to do that over there. But it's something that's needed. You guys have been around a long time, and Josh, I know you in particular have been involved with drainage issues over the years throughout the county. And it's just something that we've gotten so many subdivisions that needs to be addressed, and this is the only mechanism today that would allow the county to help these people in their homes, these subdivisions, to solve these drainage problems.
So when this is done, and they pay for it, will it be dedicated to the county at that point?
No. We've got no responsibility in the maintenance of this at all. Our only responsibility in this is funding it in the beginning, accepting the agreements, funding it in the beginning, accepting the contractor, getting him started. Beyond that, we've got no responsibility whatsoever. And originally, my concept was we wouldn't even pick the contractor because I didn't want to subject the contractor to all the bidding requirements that we have as government, plus bonding. They have to do the bonding, and there's a huge amount of work and cost to doing work for the county. I was going to have the HOA pick the contractor. I was going to have them actually get the money.
I agree with you. There does need to be a mechanism in place to deal with some of these drainage issues that we have over the county, and this, we know won't be the only one that we have to contend with. My only hesitation in the whole thing is using our cash money.
Well, and to address that concern, Michelle's here, our treasurer, and she can speak to that. The county has quite a bit of money in reserve.
It does now, but
Yeah,
in 3 or 4 years.
and quite honestly, you know how it works. We've got anywhere from probably $30 to $60 million in float every day. So it would never impact the county's ability to do anything going forward. It is minuscule in the grand scheme of things when you talk about overall funding that's available to the county. Now, when I say we got 40 or 50 million in float, I'm not saying that we can use all of that money. I'm just saying that money's out there. It's in float every day because the county receives the tax dollars and then we forward them on to all the other taxing units. And in that process, we just got a turnover of money constantly. So the 322, which we're not going to use all of anyway, and if we get a significant amount of people pay up front, we'll minimize the amount of money that we're going to have to use out of general fund. So really, and I understand your concerns, especially in light of what we're facing with the COVID, the virus, and some of those things. But believe me, the funding dollars are minuscule in the grand scheme of things as far as the county's availability of funds.
It would be nice going forward if we could borrow the money from an institution, if we can work on that.
Yeah, listen, I'm 150% behind that, and I'll probably wear Rob out here now that he's giving me a little light of hope moving forward on that subject. But like I said, I'm prepared to go to the General Assembly and find out why in the world other taxing units are able to borrow money from lending institutions, and I'm being told that the county can't. There's got to be something there.
Well, I think it's a good thing. I'm in favor of it. And it's for the reason that all homeowners are not in the business of streets, and storm sewers, and drainage, and they're not capable of doing it. So this mechanism, I think, is a good thing. For those planned urban developments and all those mechanisms to build a subdivision a long time ago. And now there becomes a problem with streets in disrepair. There's a multitude of things that can go wrong. And I think this is a good mechanism.
My only concern is if, 4 or 5 other subdivisions come to us, how do you pick and choose? We couldn't do all of them.
Well, I'd like to see a mechanism where they go to the bank, the homeowners association, maybe with the put together.
Yeah, exactly. And to address Jim's concern there, this bill, House Bill 1155 sunsets next July. There's a 3-year pilot program. So next summer, I'll be going back up to the State House to testify before the various committees, the Senate Committee and the House of Representatives Committee. Go out there and testify as to the effectiveness of it. And then what I see is some flaws in the way it's written. And when that occurs, then we're going to address some of the things I just said. Let the HOA pick the contractor, let the HOA secure funding. All we're doing then is they secure funding, we're just guaranteeing it with the tax dollars. So there's some things that I think we can get changed in that House Bill 1155 to address those various things. But here's the other thing. This only works for a homeowners association that has mandatory membership. So that precludes an awful lot of subdivisions in this county right now that wouldn't be able to avail themselves of this at all because they don't have a mandatory HOA. But on the flip side of that, if they've got significant needs and they want to reorganize and form a mandatory HOA, they could do that and still make application. But you're not going to see a flood of subdivisions coming forth under this, believe me. Right now, it's pretty selective in what we're doing. I don't want to tell you some of the war stories, but I will tell you about the guy up in Carefree North, got a hole this big around and about 4 foot deep in his front yard because it's a drain that drains the street, our street, to the north of his yard. Pipe runs diagonally across his yard to an outfall. That pipe is filled. His whole front yard is basically eroding into that pipe. And it's not just a matter of repairing that one hole. The whole pipe needs to be replaced. The homeowner can't do it. But the way things are today, the way things are written, it's the homeowner's responsibility to put this pipe back in that drains our streets. And this poor guy's stuck because they don't have a mandatory homeowners association. There's a lot of good in it, and I appreciate your concerns. Anything else I could address, I'd be happy to do.
This may be a stupid question. How is this going to affect our overall budget this year?
Well, what I'd like to ask for is a separate line item in the commissioner's budget for this. So for 2 reasons. One, to put the funding in there and so we can monitor the funding. But going forward over a short period of time, the next 2 or 3 years, there's going to be some accounting that needs to be done as you get people to pay early. And maybe a year later, some of them want to come forward and pay off the balance and that. And what I'd like to do is hopefully I'm here for 4 more years, over the next 4 years, is work with the auditor and take a lot of that burden off of them. I'll do the math and kind of keep a running tab on it, keep track of the 164 homeowners and how they're paying it. I plan on helping them in that regard. But if you will give us a line item in our budget and then appropriate the funding into that, we'll be able to monitor that and help out.
So my question is this going to show as
I didn't hear you, Jim.
is this going to show as a $300,000+ deficit next year's budget and the general fund? I figure it would, and there's no way it's got to come out of general fund, no QCAP, nothing like that.
General fund statute, yeah.
Ron, why can't the homeowners association borrow the money themselves?
There's no bank going to loan the homeowners association that. They got no guarantee to get their money back. The best they could do would be lien against the homeowners, and you know how liens work. You could have a lien on a piece of property for 20 years. You have to wait till it's sold before you can collect on the lien, unless you want to spend an awful lot of money to try to force the issues. And there's really no mechanism Bob can attest to for a homeowners association to borrow funds like that. the best they can do is self-assess, which Willow Lakes East has done a good deal of that already and used those funds for this project and the engineering costs and that.
Ron, I know you've been working on this a long time. Is there a deadline that you're looking at? Because again, like you said.
Yeah, about, whatever time you guys are gonna adjourn. That's my deadline. We're to the point where we've had this contract, we bid this job in March, early March. We've had this poor guy hanging out there. We're running, to the point where we're jeopardizing losing this contract. We can't afford to do that now with all the time and effort we've got invested, given the season that's here and the time left to perform the work on this. And a lot of this work, major work, is in a fairly sizable stream. So we need to get this guy going here as soon as we can. Once you give me a vote, if you vote to do it, Dan's gonna be meeting with him tomorrow and they'll start the walkthrough and get the work started. But it's, time is of an essence here. We're up against it.
So essentially the balance of budget, rainy day, basically borrow from the rainy day to replenish those funds.
We've got a balanced budget before this event, right? You could say for every dollar I got coming in, I got a dollar going out, that's balanced, right? When we have such a healthy balance sheet, you could, and it has to come from the general fund, this 322. So in a way, we're gonna be at a deficit budget of 322, knowing that cash on hand is covering 322. That all. We'll attest to the HOA. There's very rare exceptions in my 24 years of banking. So I've looked at one HOA deal, and it was to a highly engaged, well-funded HOA. They had a special assessment that took care of more than half the project with cash from a 2-year repayment. I mean, it's basically unsecured from the lender side, and you just don't make loans like that. I think it's going to present, it's a great effort. It really is. I see accounting kind of nightmares with this. Somebody, if they want to prepay their portion now at 322, they're not paying interest. They don't have to go into the AM schedule, right? But say they're 2 years into it, they want to prepay, we finance based on their initial commitment to the 15-year repay. So then you're going to have some accounting issues that I hope never come back on the county or our staff. I would hate to think that any kind of project that we are involved in, that when it's handed over, people sign off on it, they accept it. Does the majority of the HOA have to accept the completed project? And is there any recourse back to us at the end of the day on this? It sounds like early on, Ron, you indicated there weren't or was not recourse back to us, but that's just a concern in a pilot program. That all the I's get dotted and T's get crossed, and are we insulated?
The construction contract is with us. So the county is signing the construction contract. So all of the standard protections that we would have in a construction contract are in that contract.
Okay.
But I think your question is almost reversed. So the contractor is accountable to us, not necessarily HOA.
Well, okay, if I'm a homeowner out there and something goes wrong with this project, I'm pointing to the people that have their hands in it the whole time, which is the county, the contractor. I'm suing anybody I can to right the wrong that was, in their eyes. So I don't know if there's a way to get hold harmlessness, anything like that from the residents, from the HOA.
There's an indemnification clause in that agreement with the HOA.
Okay.
But we have not engaged with any of the individual residents.
Depending on the specs, there should be something in there also. Depending on the specifications for the project by the engineer, there should also be some guarantees and warranties.
Yeah, I think all the I's have been dotted and the T's have been crossed throughout this process to to protect the county and protect our interest in this. I guess you could always have somebody sue you. I mean, that's nothing to stop it, but I don't see that here. We've got through the homeowners association meeting and the proper notification, which they did, they had to notify all their homeowners by certified mail. And we also got right of entry from all of the homeowners. So we've really covered about all the bases in that regard.
I'm with you. I'm with you. It looks like it's been, you know, as much as you can foresee an issue, we've done those things. This doesn't stop somebody from suing us if something goes wrong. If there's failure, if there are cost overruns. What if there's $100,000 in cost overruns? Does this start?
No, there's no cost overruns on this.
Why is that?
Well, here's why. We've got a $32,000 contingency fee built in here. The county's got about $20,000 built into it. But contractor knows that at any time there's a change order which would create a cost overrun for anything above his bid, the homeowners association will have to come up with that money. The county won't. And then in that case, the change order would just not be approved and he'd have to go ahead with the original project. So we've kind of guaranteed ourselves that there's not going to be any cost overrun. We can control that, obviously. We control it first. We control any cost overruns. That's all I can give you.
That's great work.
You know, my thing is I don't like the funding mechanism. I don't like funding it through the general fund. But we do need to be able to repair these projects when they fail, or drainage issues when they come about. And it sounds like this is the only way that we can do it. And the fact that this is a pilot program, you know, we can maybe try one here and see how it goes, and see what happens. Is really all I can think on moving forward.
Has any other counties done this yet?
Well, there's only 2 entities in the state that can do this, Johnson County. And then the night before they were going to vote on this, on House Bill 1155, I got a call, or not vote on it, but testify. I got a call from Dan Parker, who's the head of DPW for Marion County or Indianapolis. And he said, we've been looking at your bill. He said, that really fits our need. Would you mind amending it to include a consolidated city, which is Indianapolis, Marion County? I said, Lord, no, Dan, if it helps you guys, it'll surely help us in getting it passed. And so there's, if you read the statute, Johnson County, Marion County is the only 2 counties right now that can apply the use of House Bill 1155. Now, when I go back next summer in July and testify and give them the results that we've experienced and whatever, then they might decide to go ahead and make it, well, if they move forward at that time, and then it'll be for all counties within the state. It would apply to all counties. And I've talked to other, during the process of testifying, of course, I talked to a lot of county surveyors, and they like the project. They'd like to be more involved from their aspect of it, but in the beginning, we didn't need to include them to get the basics done. But you go around, I guarantee you, go to any county in the state, and you're going to hear similar stories about drainage and the inability to solve the problem. So moving forward, it will be something that the whole state can avail itself of. But if I have to go up there and testify and tell them you guys voted it down, that's not going to bode well. That's not going to bode well for me going forward.
So what do you think the odds are? Get a loan for a bank, have to pay for it, out of zero fund.
Yeah, I mean, we have a very profile. We have a great credit profile, so I don't understand the apprehension or the misunderstanding of that. But unless it's due to being a pilot program or something unique like that, that would maybe preclude the loan. I don't know, but if the statute is saying, or the law is saying it can only be funded from the general fund, and then commissioners and that fiscal officer come back around and say, we authorize a loan to replenish that money. County still on the hook, county still has liability, brought the cash back on hand. And then at that point, we're just the agent transmitting money between the auditor and a financial institution. It seems like a lot of work. But probable, absent something unique with this that I'm not seeing, I think it's highly probable. Subject to legal opinion. Consult your financial. I want to, this is just, this is me talking. I love the work, I love the concept, the funding mechanism could be improved. We are in a financial condition to handle this situation from a cash perspective for the foreseeable future. That's 6 months or a year, I don't know, but for the foreseeable future, at least for general fund is. So, my concerns are the burden it places on auditor and getting those things all wrapped up. I'm sure we have expenses into this process that we will never recoup. And going forward, I don't know how we could even account for that. If there's a provision, if you go back and testify, there should be a provision that if the county's going to act as a fiscal a lender basically to a group of private citizens, maybe they should have to pay a fee for that over and above interest potentially. I don't know, but I would say based on what I'm hearing and seeing, Ron, I would support your recommendation and the structure to do this. And I would also ask that no other projects get even in the pipeline until this thing is done, analyzed, autopsies on it, and everything's looking good. So with that, put that in the form of a motion to authorize the appropriation of up to $322,000 as requested.
Would you be taking the small project at Foxbury Trace off the table with it?
I would, yes. I think we need to see how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just my opinion.
Well, you got a second here, based on his letter that he's got on the cover here. But I'd also like to see a cash flow analysis of kind of how much money, it's not like we're throwing money away at this, we're gonna get it back.
Oh, yeah, with interest.
And then if a lot of these people pay up front, then we may not be out so much.
Is that a second?
Second with that, long second.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Henderson, a second by Jonathan T. Myers. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Pete? Passes 5-1. Pete, no.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate that greatly, and I know that people at Willow Lake Seas will show their appreciation too. Thank you.
All right, we'll go back to where I skipped. Review of estimate property tax levy limits and estimated reduction due to the circuit breakers for each taxing unit. The Johnson County Council, as a fiscal body, has reviewed the estimated property tax levy limits and the estimated reductions due to circuit breakers for each of the following taxing units: Blue River Township, Clark Township, Franklin Township, Hennepin Township, Needham Township, Denver Township, Pleasant Township, Union Township, White River Township, Bargersville Civil Town, Edinburgh Civil Town, Franklin City, Civil City, Greenwood Civil City, New Whiteland Civil Town, Princess Lake Civil Town, Trafalgar Civil Town, Whiteland Civil Town, Center Grove Community School Corporation, Park Pleasant Community School Corporation, Edinburgh Community School Corporation, Franklin Community School Corporation, Greenwood Community School Corporation, Nineveh Hensley Jackson United School Corporation, Edinburgh Wright Agman Public Library, Greenwood Public Library, Johnson County Public Library, Amity Fire District, Burgersville Fire District, Hensley Fire District, Needham Fire District, Nineveh Fire District, White River Fire District, Solid Waste District, and Johnson County.
Forgot Whiteland.
It's dissolved.
They Now, yes, we did.
I'll make a motion to approve these units not to exceed their 2020 property tax levy multiplied by the 2021 statewide growth quotient of 4.2%.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Ison, second by Mr. Henderson. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes. Next is Johnson County Community Foundation.
Hello, I'm Kim Minton with the Johnson County Community Foundation, and this is Stephanie Wagner. Thanks for having us here tonight. Over about a year and a half ago, Lilly Endowment came to the Community Foundation and told us that they wanted us to take a leadership issue on a key community issue in our county and in our community. And so we went through a planning phase to discover what those leadership issues were that were undersourced or that we could become actively engaged in. And so we did that. We just applied for an implementation grant. We were approved for that of $200,000. So we're getting ready to launch that program. We also, in addition, were able to apply for a large-scale grant. We went through the first phase of that. 48 community foundations across the state applied. We were one of 17 that got moved on to the second round. This is a $500,000 grant. It piggybacks on the implementation grant that we're getting ready to start. And so we just are looking for support. I think you have a draft letter in front of you, potentially that we'd like you to sign tonight. Stephanie Wagner's here. We brought her on in January when we knew we were going to be launching a new initiative, that we were going to need more staff at the Community Foundation. And so actually Stephanie is the point person for this program. And so I wanted you guys to put a face with that, but she's going to tell you more about the programs that we're launching.
Thank you. So we are looking to launch what we call the Employer Resource Network. Essentially, the Employer Resource Network is a solution to retention in the workplace. Like Kim mentioned, during all of our community conversations in the past year of planning and development, retention and employee satisfaction was an issue. We heard from multiple employers, multiple agencies and organizations that they wanted a solution for that. In comes the Employee Resource Network. It is actually a nationally recognized program that has been in existence for 10 years. In the state of Indiana, there is only one other employee resource network up in northern Indiana, so we would be launching the first one south into obviously Johnson County. What it is, it's an employer-based program where there are small to mid-sized companies that are diverse in both industry and size, where they would buy shares of a success coach. That success coach would actually be in that place of business every single week for a set amount of time, depending on how many shares that company bought. they're available for via email, call, text throughout the remainder of the week. But essentially what that success coach is they're a coach and an advocate for the employee. So what employers are hearing is that they outside forces that affect the employee's productivity at work. And so this success coach would be a conduit to connect that employee with social service agencies that they weren't familiar with and resources that they didn't know existed. Those member companies then meet on a monthly basis and they talk about ways that they can increase employee satisfaction. They talk about challenges that they've heard, because that success coach is, not only do they meet with the employee, but they also are a conduit to administration and human resources. Obviously, there's a confidentiality barrier there, but in the end, we've seen 500% return on investment from these businesses that have become member companies and have bought shares of the success coach. So that's like the Cliff Notes 10,000 version. It's a great program. It's been around for 10 years. All of the conversations that we have had here locally, everyone is so excited. We have key stakeholders and collaborators we've had Aspire Johnson County that has been at the table with us from the beginning, United Way of Johnson County, Ivy Tech Community College, Express Employment. We've had many conversations, and we are here just asking for a letter of support from County Council that we can submit with our large-scale grant application.
Thank you for that. Thank you for bringing it to our attention, and it sounds like a great grant. Help out some of the citizens of Johnson County. Sounds good.
So you've already drafted a letter of support for this.
She had.
She's on it.
Yep.
You gave me a template.
Yeah, I get it.
You guys
Yes.
co-authored the, okay, very good. No, that looks good. I think it's a great option for employers to hopefully retain. It's such an important issue for sure. Are the success coaches specific to an industry, or are they broad-based or?
Broad-based for what we know so far. We do, in the way we've seen that it has been happening, the employers that have bought into the program and buy the shares, they actually come to the table when it comes to the hiring of a success coach. Because that success coach has got to be, they're kind of a unicorn where they can navigate HR and corporate if they need to be corporate, but then also have the relationship with the employee, but then also be aware of all social service networks and how to connect people to the resources that are out there. The employees just don't know what's available to them, and so the success coach would be that person to connect the dots.
Can the employers be obviously for-profit, not-for-profit, municipalities, anybody who employs?
I believe so, and anyone who wants to buy shares.
Yeah. Very cool.
I would make a motion. We need one. You want to take action on it? So you could sign a letter of support that John Myers can sign. So we could just has your name here. I don't know. But
I just set it up for you, but
Yeah.
I have a computer. I can change it if you want me to.
motion to approve the letter of support.
Second.
The motion, Mr. Curry, a second by Jonathan T. Myers, all in favor? Aye, opposed?
Thank you. We'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Good luck.
Up next is salary study.
So, the past couple weeks, Commissioner West, myself, and Councilman Ketchum have met and discussed some options in regards to the salary study. I think each of you received an email with a couple of recommendations. If you guys have any questions regarding those.
Well, can you, maybe educate me and others on how you arrived at option 1 and option 2? And if other options were possibly considered?
Yeah, so what we did, option 1 was basically with the caveat that I think last week Amy sent out an email to all department heads and elected officials asking them to specify if there were any employees that they did not want or felt deserved or the job requirements matched the internal midpoint salary or internal average. And what those included, option 1 was to bring all employees that were at or below the midpoint salary up to the internal midpoint, leaving everyone, all the employees that were at or above at their current pay rate, with the possibility of a stipend, which was recommended at maybe $500 per employee. The initial proposal was to bring all elected officials. Okay, elected officials had a significant difference between their salaries and the external midpoint or external average that was provided in the salary study. So what we did was took 1/2 of the difference and then added it back to their current salary. They're still getting some extremely large numbers. So our recommendation was to, for the purpose of tonight, leave the elected officials out to be later determined on a percentage or how we want to address that. But to either option A, bring all county employees up to the internal midpoint, with those that are currently at or above getting a stipend of undetermined dollar amount, or option 2 was to split it between this year and next year and split the difference between their current salary and the internal midpoint by half. Do half this year, half next year, with the employees that are currently at or above the internal midpoint still receiving the undetermined stipend.
Jim, did your group determine or feel like the study provided a good baseline, meaning a position that is similar across multiple departments, would have a base of X, and then maybe there's add-ons for years of service or performance reviews that are exemplary or things like that? Or?
Right, for the most part, yes. There were a few concerns which were largely addressed by the department heads in the emails that we've received over the past few days, justifying why they did not feel that certain employees needed to be brought up to the internal midpoint. The biggest, like I said, the biggest contention was the elected officials and how you address some of the major discrepancies there. So with the option A, if we kept the elected officials at 1/2 the difference added to their 2021 pay, and not reducing any of the salaries that department heads have recently emailed us on, we're in the area of a $576,000 increase over the 2020 budget, which is roughly 3%. And then when you add the stipend, if we were to add a $500 stipend, it was in the area of 270,000 additional. So the last part of this, whether we go with option A or option B, is with these significant pay raises, and in the tune of roughly $800,000 to the 2021 budget, we're recommending that each department head and elected official attempt to cut 10% or up to 10% out of their 200, 300, 400 series to help with those pay raises for their employees.
So employees like the one we looked at earlier tonight in Angela's department, the important state mandated. We have, I think, several of those.
A lot of those, most of, I believe, probation is already at or above the employment point, along with most of the merit deputies are there. We had roughly roughly 540-ish employees that were already at or above.
That's what, yeah, 70 divided by 500 and 540. So a significant number, or I should say, do you know the number of employees that we are bringing up to the midpoint?
No. I have my computer in front of me. I can figure that out really quick. But Amy, do you know how many county employees total? Ron, do you?
We're somewhere around 460, I think.
That's why that 540 wasn't making sense to me. Because I thought I heard Ron say we were under 500 employees to begin with.
Well, I guess there's a possibility that my Excel formula was wrong, but yes. Well, significantly, I mean, 500 times. I don't know, without my computer in front of me to go in and change that function or sit here and count every single employee. Yeah.
I like that thought. I like the option A or option one kind of thought process. The difference between that and the other option is to take that, those who are under the midpoint, get there in a 2-year period rather than a 1-year period. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
So,
Hey, Jim, that 460 that I referenced, I might be confusing that somewhat. That's kind of the number on the health insurance I think we look at, the employees on the health insurance. So I could be low there. I think Pam's on her way to do that. I just saw her leave, so she might be coming back with a more accurate.
like I said, when you play with Excel, the formulas can get off. I didn't have any reason to question it because I didn't know how many employees we had.
Right.
paramedic.
But yeah, I mean, if anything, that number's gonna go down. And this 576,000 will go down once we adjust the changes that the department heads have recently emailed us, and I can only imagine we're gonna adjust the elected officials down. For the council, one was almost doubling our salary. So basically, this gives us a roundabout figure and a couple of options, directions that, giving you guidance on how to proceed from here as we're starting to run out of time. But I think it was the opinion of this committee, the most important thing, number one, we paid a lot of money, a lot of time and effort was put into the study, not to use it. And our number one goal in doing the study was to try to get some parity between positions and departments and find a base pay for all of the positions. And I think we've done a pretty good job of doing that.
So it sounds that way. Thank you guys for your, gentlemen, for your work.
We have approximately 620 full-time employees that we pay.
About 120 below the midpoint and 540 above the midpoint. The Excel didn't tell you.
Yeah, thank you for your
Yeah,
time and effort on
that's
that.
fantastic.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I like both, whatever option we decide. I think we're gonna have a little bit tougher time with 10% cuts. I think that could potentially be a problem.
Yeah, and undoubtedly, some departments maybe can, some can't. But I think that if they all go through and try to trim a little bit of fat, it can help get in year after year. I mean, we've got department heads, elected officials, they're lobbying for their employees and trying to get them extra money. So I think most would be more than willing to try to do anything they could to help us do the right thing.
I want to thank the committee, and James, thanks for picking up the slack.
You're welcome.
Jim was not only the chairman, he was the scribe, so he did a lot of time now.
I do appreciate the committee.
Just glad to know that my Excel work wasn't that far off. Could be a conflict.
Probably, so.
So are you looking for some feedback between now and the next few weeks, or are you looking for?
I think you needed that tonight.
Well, my initial thought was for phase 2 of the budgets for them to enter their 2s, 3s, and 4s in the budget program by like August 25th. Just to kind of get some numbers. So.
You heard back from any of the elected officials or department heads, the 2, 3, or 400 series?
No, not. I will say this though. Going off of the salary numbers from 2020 to this 2021 $576,000 difference. We are only looking at a 3% increase, and this is a high number. And then you got to tack on the 250, 70, whatever it comes out to for the stipends. But I think it's probably what I would like to do, what my recommendation would be, is to go with option A initially. I think we've got the opportunity. We have worked on this for years and talked about this for years. Not to get it done if we can't. See what they can come back and give us out of their 2, 3, and 400 series. And, we can always adjust down when the time comes. But I would like to see what that looks like. Getting it all done in one fell swoop. I think it is feasible, but we need to see what they can give us to get that done. at this 3%, I think, you know, we're in a strong enough cash position to handle a 3% increase.
But it's a 3% increase in the budget, it's not a 3% increase, it's not a 3% raise to the employees.
Right, correct.
It's a
3%
$500
increase.
stipend or whatever.
Well,
Stipend.
the stipend is not included in the 3%, that would be additional. So if, just what we figured was if every department could give us 10% out of their 2, 3, and 400 series, that would be about 840,000, which would cover pretty much the entire raise. So we know that not all of them are going to be able to do that, but I think we can meet somewhere in the middle to make everybody happy. That's what I'm asking for. That's what I would like to see. If we have to scale it back, we scale it back, but let's try to get it all done.
It's not a bad exercise for the departments to have anyway, but, you know, what we're looking at, you know, 18 months away or 2 years away from our decreases now.
I just had a thought. If all departments would go ahead and enter their budgets, including the 100 series, into the budget program, don't actually submit it, then I could pull the numbers out and have like preliminary budget numbers along with Mike's for the September meeting, so you guys kind of know. If you kind of give them guidance, if they just enter it, it just saves a lot of time and me entering it all. But I don't want them to actually submit it as final budgets yet, but that should give us the best numbers to look at.
And it goes without saying that 270,000 of the stipends will fall off for the 2022 budget. So it's really, you know, when it comes to looking into the future.
To what extent can we, you're talking about, I guess when Mike Boyer gives his presentation, tweak it at that time?
Yeah, so
If you're talking about tweaking it low, if he comes in with some good news, we can also.
I think everything's up for discussion. This is simply to give the department heads, elected officials, the guidance to start working on their budgets.
I agree with you. I like option one instead of split it over 2 years. Then wait long enough. You never know what's next year is going to be.
Right.
So we're gonna, you know, we spent the money, we committed to it. I think we can do option one.
I really think that it's just my feeling, my sentiment is that we're willing to go this route. I think they're going to be willing to help us and cut what they can. I wouldn't be surprised.
I agree with option one, whatever it's been up to us tonight. That's kind of the additional, like you already got a lot of having a preliminary number for us to look at while we're hearing from Mike.
Even if they just put the 2% annual salary increase, because I think that's what Mike had put initially, just so you can actually see the numbers with the adjustments from the salary study as well.
Nice work.
We need a consensus on that, or?
I think so. I mean, so she can send it out to the department heads and elected officials.
We can work on wording for the memo.
You don't need to vote on anything tonight.
If it's just the consensus, it's just information guidance, it's not really something.
Okay.
And then we can work on a memo to get out to the departments this week.
Chairman, may I have the floor for a couple discussion topics?
Yes.
Thank you for indulging me here. So on Thursday, I sent an email to the council and to our attorney and to Amy. And this is kind of how it went. Considering the continued health and economic related crisis related to the pandemic, with all the negative consequences resulting, I believe the timing of the Clark Pleasant Library project is terrible. Currently, this tax increase on the taxpayer does not make sense. So that's kind of what I'd like to discuss. Again, with the loss of all the revenue from COVID-19, I'd like the council to discuss delaying, maybe postponing, same difference, I guess, the library project. I think the taxpayers would be very grateful for the relief, considering all the financial hardships so many are experiencing right now. I'm just putting it out there to see if anyone else feels the way I do about this. Further, a couple months ago, I communicated with our DLGF attorney regarding this, kind of as a follow-up question to an earlier communication. Just inquiring about, again, the economic crisis. At the time, it wasn't as bad as it is now. And I just inquired of him if the county council had the authority to dictate to the county library board how to proceed with their project. And his response to that was, the scope of the council's authority here is a question for your council attorney. He goes on to say, I tell you that if the library council, that the library requires council approved under IC 6-1.1-17-20.5. The statute only says that the library needs approval from the county council before it can continue with the bond or lease. It does not speak to what the council can do after it gives approval. So, I just think that things got worse since I initially brought this up a couple months ago, and I just want to put this out there to the council, see if anybody else feels as strongly about it as I do.
When did they start collecting the tax? Is it January?
2022.
We started collecting the tax in
2022.
I don't think the bonds get floated until 2021.
Correct.
Is that right? Yeah. So there's no impact to property tax on it, not income tax, but property tax on it until 2022.
I think that, I mean, if I'm hearing that correctly, I think I'm correct to say we have the authority, obviously, for the action to take place, but I don't believe we have any additional authority to wind it backwards.
Right, and I guess that's may be a question for Sheena at this time.
I agree with the general counsel so far as the email he responded to you with. I don't have any, in my research, I haven't found any authority for the council to force the library to stop the project. I'd be happy to continue to research if that's the will of the council.
I will, I will count.
I voted against it. That was last year. I don't think it's right to go back and try to change something that's passed already. That's just me personally. What else feels? That's just me.
Just, back during that time, and this is my opinion, things were real good back then, real good, probably the best they've been in a long time. And, I'm guilty of it. I think I overextended myself. I overextended, with support of that project. And I think we just overextended ourselves. I think, you know, in looking back, we took a gamble and lost. I mean, no, we didn't lose yet. I mean, things are going bad, and I'm concerned about it, is what I'm saying. And what kind of what I'd like to get out of this with the rest of the council is, you know, with their support, then we could ask our council to continue to research this. And you know, if it's the case that we can dictate, then, you know, we could have another meeting, you know, we could have a public hearing or whatever. But I guess I'd like to ask now, informally, if there's anybody else and anybody else who feels as strongly as I do about this. And if you don't, just somehow give me the nod or the stink eye or something, because you know, in communicating with folks in the past, I kind of felt like the Lone Ranger on this. But if anyone else feels the same way I do, I'd like to do something about it.
I agree the timing's bad, but it's never a good time, but it passed, and I think we just need to, me personally, move on.
We want to take a vote to see how whether we
Is this something we can vote on, since this wasn't in the agenda? It is kind of a new old business.
Are you proposing that you vote on whether or not you want me to do research?
Yes.
You can do that, even though it's not on the agenda.
My only other thing is, I mean, you know, obviously we didn't know what we know now. But, you know, you go back and look at in hindsight, you know, the population of the jails below where, you know, we needed to add on to it. So, you know, there's $25 million deal there that maybe we didn't need to spend. You know, the finances may be tight next year. Maybe we shouldn't be looking, if that's an issue, maybe we shouldn't be looking at employee pay raises or bonds for vehicles or maintenance or other things. So, you know, I think to me, it just, like John said, it's something that took place last year. And I think it's really more of an issue. I mean, if it's something that we want to discuss, I think it's an issue for the library and the library board. And just, you know, let them know if there's a concern there, concerns from the council. If that's something that they're willing to look at, or what their plans are to kind of get through the pandemic situation.
Would you like a response?
Sure. Well, I guess. I don't
Sure.
know. Yes, I mean, it's.
When Pete brought it up back in April, I did talk to our board about it. And I think the biggest concern is delaying a project, how inflated the costs become. And we've already purchased property. We've engaged in a contract with an architect. We've been engaged in contract with our construction manager as constructor. And, you know, we've been working on this and progressing on the project for 8 months. And to delay really would cost the taxpayer more money than what we're budgeting for right now. And so that's our biggest concern, is really, you know, you pay now or you pay later, and you're gonna pay a whole lot more later. The interest rates are really, really low right now. And our financial advisor says by the time we sell our bonds, they're still gonna be you know, a good deal for the taxpayer. And then, you know, if we're looking somewhere in the future, we can't guarantee that. So I have had that conversation with our board.
Lisa?
Yeah.
While you're there, please, can you refresh my memory on what the data and the average property owner, residential property home owner is going to pay?
So like the median
Yes,
is $1.31 per month, so just a little over $15 per year. And that does not take effect until 2022. And it also doesn't affect anyone already at their tax caps. And of course, only affects people in our library district.
Do you post your minutes online?
No, they're not posted online, but I'm happy to.
They are public meetings.
Oh, of course, yeah, absolutely. I can forward you minutes or whatever.
And you're saying at that meeting, unanimously, everyone was on board with.
We did not
moving
vote.
forward.
We did not vote on it, but there was a discussion that there was concern from a council member, so we had it was a discussion.
I appreciate that.
You know, I do appreciate how you focused on this, and it's not something that, you know, it's been on your mind and on your heart, so you are taking it to this level, and I appreciate that. That's what we all think we want, is that type of integrity out of our elected officials, to just bird dog it until, you know, they get their mind right about it, or take it to the far as they go. I'm of the opinion to stand by our decision as a body that night. I'm of the opinion that you know, delaying a project, you're not asking to cancel, you're asking to delay. And I think with that opens a lot of questions of, well, when? You know, to your point of, when we made that decision, it was really good economic time. So does that mean, by your opinion, and I'm not being mean about this that way, but by your opinion, do we have to return to really good economic times before we proceed with something like that? And that gets kind of weedy to me. And so I'm just of the opinion that I felt at the time, I probably went on record of saying it, those dollars and the figures expressed by Lisa were very reasonable. I thought they more than justified a need for the location, for the project itself, and the cost or burden placed on the taxpayer for that need was certainly worth the value they were going to be receiving. So I stand by my position that night. I respect entirely what you have done, how you've gone about it. And my advice to you would be, at this point, I'm not willing to move forward as a council or as a body where I would vote no to ask their board to do anything as a group, but individually, that would be my suggestion. And others that feel that way.
I appreciate that. And my thought would be is, if Sheena found out that we can't dictate, if the council does have the authority, I would move that the Park Pleasant Library project be delayed, postponed. So, and that would be until, again, the economy was once again doing well, until the council elects or concludes to resume the project. And that would be our opinion. And of course, we would seek perhaps other opinions before we, you know. So that's my take on it. So again, if Sheena were to find out that we do indeed have the power to dictate over that project, then that's my next thought. And
I kind of echo Rob and his sentiment, but my thought here is, if we're all not in favor of it, I mean, do we need to put Sheena through the extra work?
right, and that's what I'm trying to get out of council.
Motion is, see where it
If
goes.
it's appropriate, I will.
Your motion, again, sorry, your motion is going to be to ask me to do work.
Yeah, well, understanding the next step, I guess.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're within your, yeah. you're within your rights to make that motion.
It is my motion that if the Johnson County Council does indeed have the authority to dictate the progress of the Johnson County Library Park Pleasant new library project, then I would then move to have that project be postponed.
No,
That doesn't work.
That's
Can't
a
do
little
that.
beyond what I thought.
No, for the council to take a vote on if we want her to do that.
Okay.
If you want me to research it.
All right,
Yeah, that's
okay,
the first step of what you just said,
Sure.
right? Okay.
Sure. But I think I got my point across. So that's my motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Ketchum. Requesting that county attorney research to see if we have authority to stop or reverse North Pleasant library construction. Correct? Correct. Do we have a second?
Was it in a delay? It wasn't stopped.
A delay.
Was it a delay? Are you saying?
Just to dictate,
I think it's generally whether or not you have the authority to intervene in a project that you've already approved.
exactly.
Okay.
We have a motion. We have a second. We'll say it not as lack of a second.
Again, thank you for indulging me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for all your work you done on that. Is there anything else?
John, I, just real quick, as a part of the salary study committee, we need to recognize Pam and Amy. They did an awful lot of fact finding and providing information and giving us valuable input on that.
I think it goes without saying that if they're involved, they probably had a significant role.
Yeah, for sure.
Basically, they did, Chairman, I won't.
Yes, sir.
Sorry to take away your accolades there. Also, we were going to discuss, if I could find my notes. Okay, requesting that our county attorney create a ordinance that in the future, that if we have a proposal that would increase any form of tax to the county, that we have a full council in attendance.
I think the more appropriate avenue would be through bylaws.
So if the council wants to create bylaws for that situation or any other, no, not any other, but certain other situations that could arise, we certainly can have bylaws. I would suggest you put together a committee and I'll work with you and we can see what you want to do and make sure you do it and we'll go from there.
Even if that's the only law in the bylaws.
Yeah, technically you could just have one bylaw. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea. Some kind of bylaw regarding votes when it comes to tax increase. So,
I mean, every other important vote we take falls on the floor. We want to.
when it comes to like for property tax or income tax, we're more than just informed.
So let me put this scenario out. Let's say we do that where we say all of us have to be present and we have someone hospitalized for a long period of time, something like that. I mean, I think we're kind of going down a road that we may not see all obstacles in front of us right now.
We talked about that earlier, Jim, and you weren't around. I'm not sure where we were when we talked about it, but vacation. Yeah. That would certainly be an exception. If someone was laid up for more than, I don't know, 2 months, then something reasonable. I know on the planning commission, we have to have a minimum. I don't know, does everyone need to be in attendance?
Just a minimum.
But I don't know. I mean, that was kind of the issue where after the initial vote, where we had people come out with, well, you guys didn't experience it, but with pitchforks and torches saying, hey, that was an improper vote. You know, we don't really want to go down that having a candidate, so this would.
Well, I would contend the issue is with those who wanted to remonstrate and had months on months to not only attend our meetings, but library board meetings, that they failed to appear in voice their opinion, even us individually, by and large. So I would say that was the true issue. We operated within state law, and I think that is absolutely fine with me. I have no qualms asking Sheena or somebody to convene a committee, and we kind of work through some of these challenges, but I would land in Jim's court right now with, we just can't foresee where it would be appropriate to do this, and question the council, how many of us need to vote to change or to initiate a bylaw?
I'll look it up.
Thank you. Yeah, we don't even know. I mean, it's just one of these things where we don't know what we don't know, so a study committee is absolutely fine. I'm for that, but I know we acted within state law. We have multiple opinions of that. And to me, that's all this council was asked to do. To further tighten it is to, I think, impose on future councils things that I would not want necessarily impose on the way we conducted business during my time here.
I know from, this is neither here nor there, this is going to pass, but to be honest with you, coming into that vote, I was a no. And seeing the overwhelming response of support that showed up the night of the vote with zero opposition to it, you know, I agree with what you said. I think, you know, when you wait until after a vote's taken to oppose it, it's too late.
Isn't everything that we do as a council almost have the possibility of becoming a tax increase? And I was just wondering also, you know, maybe we could address the procedure and, you know, maybe we do it through introduction and then first reading and second reading, something of that nature to ensure, but I don't know what we would do at budget time because that is, you got to hit it. So it becomes a quandary. So again, you know, it's going back to state law, there's a reason for it.
I'll tell you what, for the next meeting, I'll get on the agenda and we'll hopefully everyone's here. I'll bring that up and then we can vote on whether or not we need everyone here to vote on tax, when we raise taxes.
I don't know if everybody, I think there should be like at least 6 of us.
Well, you know, the committee, I love it.
I'm okay with it.
Hey, John, can I say?
Yes, sir.
I think in part what Pete is trying to say there is not that all 7 of you had to be here for the vote, but it would take a minimum of 4. In other words, the majority of the full council. Thank you. To approve a tax increase or a bond issue, something of that nature, or a bylaw change. And that to me, quite honestly, I thought that's the way it was all along. 12 years I was on the council, and I was the first one when your vote was 3-2 to question how could they do that, because you got to have at least 4, a majority of the full council. And I think that question's still out there. We're getting different opinions, and I won't go into that. But I think that's what Pete's saying. And think about this. If you had a situation where there was only 6 of you, and the vote was 3-3, that would be cause for concern. If 3 of you were of an opinion that something should go forward and 3 of you were of an opinion that it shouldn't, that's wholesome. And that would be creating a fine debate on that issue, which would make the public more aware of what you were confronted with, either as a yes or a no vote. So I think it's prudent to have on any kind of a tax increase or ordinances of that sort, bylaw change, that you should have at least 4 votes. Now, there again, you could have 5 people here at the meeting, and as long as all five of you voted unanimously for it to move on. But there's something to consider, and I think that's what Pete's trying to say, not that all seven of you have to be here. And that goes back to what Jim said, if, you know, somebody's off or
I
down.
misunderstood that. I would be more receptive to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. Sorry about that. No,
Thanks.
it's okay.
I appreciate that time.
You guys considered our committee, look into that?
I volunteer to be on it.
Said I have no qualms with the committee.
Let's be on committee.
I'll be on.
Anybody else?
It's me and Pete are on the committee.
You can't do it, but you can. Yeah.
Oh, I can.
Okay, I'll do it.
Okay.
There we go. Anything else?
You know, it's worth a little bit more about what Jonathan said. You know, every decision we make here as a council member, you're dealing with the taxpayers' money, right? I mean, additional appropriations or whatever the case may be. And there's oftentimes you don't know who's absent, who's going to be there. So that's just my thing. I think it's but it's worth looking into and studying the issue.
Right. Check into it. All right, anything else? Have a motion by Mr. Ice, and a second by Mr. Henderson, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.